On their wedding anniversary, after spending time with her first love, she returned home to her husband as if nothing had happened. But the moment she stepped inside and instinctively took off her shoes, she was struck by the icy cold floor beneath her feet. Because every time she came home before, her husband would always hand her slippers right away. But now her feet were freezing, and she was shocked to realize he wasn't home. Still unaware that something was wrong, she put on her slippers and walked to the dining table. But to her surprise, not only was he gone, there wasn't even dinner prepared. Just as she angrily complained, "How dare he still not be home at this hour?" her parents suddenly rushed into the villa in a panic, and when they saw her they were even more shocked. It was then she learned from them that her husband had been in a car accident. Only then did she remember the call for help she received while with her first love. At that moment all she could think about was her ex, and she just assumed her husband had slipped, even lied saying she'd been in an accident, and hung up the call without hesitation. Little did she know, her husband was dying on the operating table, desperately waiting for her rare blood to save him. Luckily the hospital managed to transfer blood from a nearby facility, barely saving his life. Even the doctor was chilled by how cold she was. When her father learned she chose her ex over her husband, he slapped her without hesitation. She froze on the spot, unable to believe her father would hit her for an adopted son. Her mother also couldn't understand his reaction, because ever since she was young, she thought her husband was just someone her father brought in to be a living blood bank in case she needed it. What she didn't know was that the man was actually the long-lost youngest son of a wealthy family, and her father was the only one who knew the truth. He could have gone back to his real family, but he chose to stay, just to be with her for the rest of his life. But no matter how hard he tried, he could never warm her cold heart. In the end he gave up, and finally decided to let go. So he called his mother, and agreed to return to his family. But remembering their time as husband and wife, he decided to take care of her for 3 more days before leaving. Yet when he came home, he caught her celebrating her ex's birthday. When she saw him at the door, she was startled, but at the table she showed no restraint, enthusiastically serving food to her ex in front of him, barely muttering a word to tell him to eat, not realizing he never ate spicy food, and the whole table was filled with dishes he avoided. After taking a bite of the dog meat dish made by her ex, she immediately frowned, spitting it out in disgust. Only then did she realize she had grown used to her husband's cooking. That night back in their room, he handed her the divorce papers, but she was too busy playing games with her ex to even look at them, didn't even have time to press her fingerprint, so she asked him to do it for her. Seeing that, he could only pick up her hand and press her fingerprint on the papers himself, completely heartbroken, while she was still immersed in her game, unaware that she had just destroyed her own marriage. The next morning, he had already packed and left. It wasn't until her sister found the divorce papers and handed them to her that she finally snapped out of it, rushed home in a panic, only to find an empty house, and no one answered her calls. She kept telling herself, he must be hiding somewhere, but then she overheard her ex's sinister plan at the door.